Everybody, it's Captain Kyle. I'm here with David Sobolov, very talented voice actor. You might have heard him in Rise of the Beasts. You might have heard him in The Flash. You might have heard him in Beast Wars. Lots of stuff. Yeah, we're going to go way back. So
That's way back. You know, Beast Wars, I sound like his father now, I think.
You sound like Depth Charge.
If we did Depth Charge now, it would probably be his dad.
Well, I got to say, I definitely loved you in Beast Wars, but you've been in so many Transformers things. You've been in Bumblebee as Blitzwing. Did you think when you got the role of Depth Charge that you would be in the Transformers franchise for 30 plus years?
I was lucky to get one. I didn't think I'd ever be back. And it just keeps happening. It's not even connected. I keep auditioning or being in the right place at the right time, and every few years another opportunity comes up. I've been really lucky.
So you've been hit with a Transformers blessing. You've been
somehow. Yeah.
Very nice. When you first approached the role, I know this is going back a bit. Well, before we get into the specifics of that, when you were going to audition for a role, do you really look at the physicality? Do you look at the character bio and their personality traits, or is it a combination when you're coming up with the voice that you feel fits that character?
Mostly the psychology of the character. What motivates him to be on the planet, more or less, and what does he want or need, So Depth Charge was kind of singular. He was his own kind of separate entity from the rest of them. He just had his mission. And if he was needed for his mission to find his enemy, he would just leave whatever he was doing, drop whatever he was doing, or whomever he was helping. It didn't matter.
A singular focus.
Exactly.
Monomania. Yeah. Since then, you've come into, you've done a lot of video games, you've done a lot of animation, but now you've been doing a lot more of CGI characters in live action, such as Gorilla Grodd. How did Gorilla Grodd come about?
That was an interesting story because I was literally at a casting for a video game, and a producer heard me in the hallway. And only 3 people tried for that role. And I was lucky enough to be cast in it. But he heard me in a hallway there, and that's why I was brought in for the audition.
Did he come up to you and say, "You sound like a big ape"?
He came up to me and said he might have something for me and gave me his card.
Very nice, very nice. When you're doing something that's going to be in live action, do you approach that mentally any differently than you do any other type of voice work?
Well, it's interesting, the process, because when we actually do the work for Grodd, they've usually shot the episode a couple of days before, and I get to see what they've done, and I work with them after they've worked on it. And it really is so dependent on the live actors to make what I do real. Because if they make it silly, then there's nothing I can do to make it not look silly. But they took it really seriously and helped me do a good job.
Ah, that's awesome. Do they also animate already the mouth, so you had to?
No, they have a stand-in on set. Doing performance capture, where they would have it all sort of set up as a model in a sense, is too expensive for television. So they had people, just CGI artists, doing it in the computer, and the one fellow on stage, on stilts, sometimes in a gorilla costume, saying the lines. And that helped the actors.
Yeah, definitely. It's have you done a lot of live action stuff? Or
a little, not much. A couple movies, small things.
And how do you find that compared to the voice acting? Or is it like, I'd rather be in a booth?
I always tell my students for voice acting that it's a live action performance just in your mind, in your imagination. So I try to keep it's pretty similar, really. In practice, not so much, but in terms of technique, in terms of just the way you approach the work, it's all acting. You're still trying to live truthfully under given imaginary circumstances, as Meisner said.
Yeah, absolutely. With the various roles that you've had, are there roles that you kind of wish you could revisit, go back and?
Well, ones I wish could just continue on, like Grodd would have been wonderful to continue. Drax from Guardians of the Galaxy, that I did in the animated series, was great. There was a show called Kaijudo I did many years ago that I thought was very special, and very few people saw it. Sometimes it's the most obscure things that mean the most.
So Kaijudo is? Watch Kaijudo. Look it up. You know where it's available?
No, just wherever people can find it.
Trying to get you some residuals, man.
Yeah.
So the first time, how did you decide to become a voice actor? Was it did you stumble into it? Did you say, I really hear these people on the radio and I want to do that? Or
It found me. I was doing plays. I was doing a cappella singing. I was playing French horn. And someone heard me in a play and said, come do villains. It was an agent. And they kind of pushed me into it. Never thought of doing it.
they said come do villains?
Yeah, specifically.
So were a lot of your early roles villains?
Many. A lot of deep voice villains, intelligent villains. But I tend to specialize in anyway. Because, they hear the voice and they're not thinking of a 12-year-old girl. It doesn't really work.
That would be a very interesting.
Yeah, that would be
animation.
a departure. But, when you do animation for television, you often are asked to do incidental parts. So sometimes they'll throw bizarre things at me. So you never know. If you watch an old show that I'm in, you might hear an incidental character. That's a departure for me. And when I get to do comedy, it's a treat. Because I don't get to do that very often.
Have they ever thrown a 12-year-old girl at you? And said,
No.
Do you want them to?
No, would not be appropriate.
They're like, might be an interesting challenge, but no, I don't think I quite have. Yeah, I probably couldn't voice a 12-year-old girl either. So you've done a lot of side characters. I understand you're a member of SAG, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So you can only do so many voices per...
Every contract is different. For feature films, you can do however many. They just have to pay you for each one.
Oh, nice.
So the contracts vary. With television animation, you do 2 voices for free, and then there's 10% more they pay for the third one. I mean, any of these can do as many as they want. It's just a different contract to pay it out.
Yeah, basically, if they pay you enough, you can do all the voices.
Yeah, I did 23 voices in EverQuest in the video game.
Wow. Now, with video games, though, you have to do a lot of reaction stuff. How do you handle the all the grunting?
Well, a couple of little secrets about that. You don't hurt your voice as much if you're actually feeling an emotion. If I'm screaming just to scream, I'm going to hurt myself. And if I'm screaming because something happened to me, then it's better on the voice.
So do you just have this stock
me.
of memories that you use? And say,
No, I just try to imagine the situation that they're in.
Oh, acting, you mean?
Oh, yeah, acting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes the director will literally say, there's a hot poker going down your throat, burning your skin your throat as it goes. What would that sound like? And you just have to quickly imagine it. In the early days, I would have them vocalize it for me and I'd repeat it, but I'm a little bit better at it now.
Are there particular lines that you found particularly difficult, or screams?
It's the screams, the longer screams. There's no way to protect yourself from some of this stuff, no matter what I may use as a technique. Kaijudo in One Piece, toward the end, I was asking them to actually take screams from earlier episodes. If it was 6 or 8 or 10 seconds long, it's very difficult to continue doing that. I did a video game once where I lost my voice for 6 months and thought my career was over.
Wow.
Then I learned my lesson. You have to really watch what you're doing because we're only human. The characters we play aren't necessarily. They can handle a lot more than we can.
What's your remedy for when you do strain your voice a bit during a session?
Honey, tea, and vocal rest.
So it's if you're not talking, it's he's doing vocal rest.
It does help, yeah. I heard Frank Sinatra didn't speak on Sundays to rest his voice. I may be wrong, but that's what I've heard.
Have you ever used vocal rest as a excuse to not talk to someone you didn't want to talk to?
I don't know about that, but texting is my friend.
Texting is a wonderful thing. Anything new that's coming out that you can talk about?
I'm doing 3 video games right now that I'm not allowed to talk about. I'm developing my own show called Captain Fingers that I worked on over the pandemic.
Oh, nice.
And it's just we have an animatic ready for that, and I'm out soon to be pitching that to streamers and networks and seeing if I can get that going.
Can you give us a little bit about Captain Fingers?
He's an actor, and it's a world where everyone's anthropomorphic. So he's a hand. That's why he's Captain Fingers. His dad is just Legs and owns a gym called Leg Day. So they're all. It's just goofy fun.
I take it you have a lot of jokes like "Don't skip leg day."
Maybe we'll have to see.
If not, I just gave you a joke. You're welcome.
We have a fan convention in our show called Anthropomorphicon.
Oh, nice.
Which we thought was cute.
Very cool.
We'll see.
All right. I hope that comes to fruition.
Thank you.
Anything you want to say to the fans who have watched your characters throughout the years?
Well, thank you. I never know what impact we have until we come to these fan conventions. And then you find out who cares about what, how much they care, and sometimes they care a lot. And I respect that. Sometimes it meant a lot to them as children. Now that I'm getting older, a lot of people had seen this stuff 20, 30 years ago. And at the time, it meant something to them in a special, specific way. I met one fellow once. It was a very moving story. Usually, but once every convention, somebody tells you something that really gets to you. And this one, his brother and him had been playing, I think it was Call of Duty, one of the Call of Duties that I was in. And they liked my character a lot. And his brother died. And this was his main memory, his happy memory of his brother. And it was very emotional when I signed the picture for him.
Wow.
So you really get to find out how much this means to people. And it's really smart if us voice actors will respect that. Because aside from just being kind to people, we wouldn't have any work without the fans. We'd have nothing.
Absolutely. Before we finish up, when you were young and watching Star Wars in line, 12 years old, what were the characters that you found to be inspirational?
I was always very nostalgic for a time before I was born. Even though I wasn't there, I watched Bugs Bunny, and I always looked for the oldest ones, the Popeyes from the 1930s. Just goofy fun I liked.
Very cool. All right. Well, thank you, David.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thanks, everyone out there, for watching.
Thank you.
And as always, have fun and follow your fandom.
Hey there, this is Nolan North, and you are watching Fandom Spotlight. Good for you. Very proud of you. Now go watch more. Oh, and have fun and follow your fandom. I like that.